During the 1660s, public enemy #1 was Colonel Thomas Blood. He'd been involved in numerous plots and kidnap attempts, and he was a master of escape and disguises. But between 1667 and 1670, he disappeared almost completely, and for a time it was reported that he was in fact dead.
It may hurt a little.
But Blood was very much alive, even if he did spend most of his time covered in blood. He'd moved to Romford and set himself up as a surgeon, which in those days was little more than a glorified butcher.
Shut your mouth, you papers, and take it like the pigs at jar. Drink that. Your leg will be in hell before ye.
So, you were a quack?
Not try. I did not indulge in piss-pot science. Claim that I could diagnose an illness of a patient in his absence simply by his urine.
But you weren't trained.
I was as well trained as the other so-called physicians. After all, they didn't get their qualifications from apprenticeship and study. They bought them from the College of Physicians.
But you didn't stick at it for very long, did you? It wasn't long before you were back to your old fanatical tricks. Blood may have been underground, but he wasn't forgotten, especially by this man, the Duke of Buckingham. As the king's best mate, Buckingham had been a powerful figure in court, but now Charles's favour fell on the Duke of Ormond instead, Blood's old enemy. Buckingham wanted to get rid of Ormond to get back in with Charles. Blood wanted to get revenge on Ormond for confiscating his land in Ireland. Perhaps Buckingham hired a willing hitman with a personal motive. Handy if anyone started asking questions.
Stop the coach, there's a dead man on the roadway. I demand that ye, Ormond, step down from this carriage immediately.
If it's the money you require, then take it.
Get out of here! Tie him up!
So far, so good. You stop the coach, grab Ormond and tie him up.
Then he escaped.
Right, let's get this straight. You've got Ormond tied up to another bloke on the back of a horse, and he escaped.
He wriggled free like a slippery eel.
He was an old man, pushing 60. You couldn't even grab a grandad. You.
He had Satan on his side.
Well, it's a good job he escaped, isn't it? Because by all accounts, you were going to hang him at Tyburn. Like a common criminal.
That's a darn lie put about by accursed Catholics. I just want to hold him ransom for the return of my rightful lands in Ireland.
Did you hear about the kidnapping?
The attack was the talk of the town and discussed in detail in taverns and coffee houses. The king issued a proclamation offering a reward of £1,000 for Blood's capture. And in January 1671, a House of Lords Select Committee was set up to examine the evidence. So, did Buckingham put you up to the kidnap?
'Tis not for me to reveal.
Well, Ormond's son certainly thought that he did, so much so that he even confronted Buckingham in front of the king. And I've got what he said here. I've got it written down, look. I know well that you are at the bottom of this attempt of Blood's upon my father. Therefore, I will give you fair warning. If my father dies by the hand of a ruffian, or by the more secret way of poison, I shall not be at a loss to consider you as the assassin. So, is it a coincidence that there were no more attacks on Ormond after this?
Perhaps Ormond was left alone because I was planning my next adventure. And if I say so myself, it was a gallant one. For it was for a crime.
Ah, yes, the theft of the crown jewels, which is what made you famous, or should I say infamous.
I prefer notorious.
In Blood's time, as today, the crown jewels were kept in the Tower of London, only they weren't always so well looked after. King John lost them in quicksand, Edward III pawned them off to pay his troops, and Oliver Cromwell had them completely broken as symbols of the detestable rule of kings. So, when Charles II climbed back on the throne, they had to be replaced at a whopping cost of £12,000, enough then to buy half of Europe. That, and a series of costly wars, meant that the crown was skint. No one knows why Blood decided to nick the crown jewels, but let's look at the evidence. The king was short of cash, but had a great asset sitting in a badly guarded vault. Maybe the king's old mate Buckingham, keen to win back favour with Charles, had a word in the royal ear about a dodgy Irishman. Whatever the reason, Blood's next job was a jewel heist. And the man responsible for guarding the precious gems wasn't exactly SAS material. Old Talbot Edwards would make a little extra cash by showing paying visitors the crown and sceptre.
Yes? My wife and I would like to look at the jewels.
Blood planned to get access to the jewels by getting close to Talbot Edwards with the help of a female accomplice.
Oh my God, she's gone again.
Gwendolyn! Gwendolyn! Let's water!
From that moment, with all the charms given unto me by God, I did make a friend of the man, and soon we hatched a plot of our own.
And he was an accomplice?
Not in the scheme of the jewels, but in the scheme of a marriage. For I put it to him that his daughter might be married to my nephew.
And how did this aid your plan?
Soon to be one of the family, I could come and go as I pleased, no questions, no suspicions, only the goodwill of all.
On the morning of May the 9th, 1671, Blood arrived at Edwards' lodgings in the Tower of London with some friends who he claimed were keen to see the jewels before they left town. Thinking nothing of it, Edwards let them in.
Get the coin! Get the horn! Put in the bag! Put in the bag! Right here. This one's too long. With the mallet, I broke the heart of England. With one blow, I scattered the jewels of her maid on the ground.
Don't give me that. You had to smash the crown up because the bag you brought was too small to fit it in.
There was a problem, true.
And the escape didn't go according to plan, did it? Jingling with broken jewels, the thieves made their way out of the building where fate dealt a cruel blow. By sheer coincidence, Edward's son had popped home to see his father after 10 years at sea.
The ill luck was with us all the way. Murder was screened behind us. Although we hardly touched the fella, the guards were on us before we got through the gate.
So it was back to the tower.
Aye, as you say, back to the tower.
In those days, you could swing for stealing a sheep, and Blood was wanted for attempted kidnap, alleged arson, and now a major jewel heist. But it was more than mere thievery. An attack on the crown meant just that, an attack on the crown, about as treasonous as you could get without physically attacking the king himself. Surely Blood's head would be on a spike outside the Tower of London within days.
Your Majesty.
All right, then you. Come on. Follow me.
Blood would not speak to any of his interrogators except to demand an audience with the king, and astonishingly, his request was answered.
I'm a free man. You may release me.
There are no records of what went on in that meeting, but there are many rumours. We all know that Blood walked out of the room a free man, with his lands in Ireland restored to him, and a pension of £500 to boot. Are we expected to believe that Blood was just a simple thief and not embroiled in a court plot? You were up for one of the most treasonous crimes of the time, not to mention robbery, assault, battery, attempted kidnap. But you got away with it. How? As simple as impressing King Charles with your wit and daring.
I can't see you.
Had the king put you up to the theft himself, because I know he was a bit strapped for cash.
It's none of your business.
Were you working for Buckingham? I do know that influential people who worked for him did speak on your behalf. Did you do a deal? Did you spy on your nonconformist friends and shop them in return for your life and a pension?
I cannot say what history does not have me say, lest I was at peace with my sovereign and would not cause him trouble until my death.
Whatever the truth, in a single stroke, Blood had gone from traitor and rebel to man about court. But true to his bungling nature, Blood blew it. He fell out with Buckingham, the man who'd done so much to get him there. You never did stop plotting, did you? You were involved in a libel case against your so-called chum, the Duke of Buckingham.
I was set up.
Well, Buckingham was upset enough to charge you with a suit of scandalum magnatum, which I presume means a big scandal. So what did he say about him?
I said nothing. It was a plot to ruin me.
The case centred around the accusation that Buckingham had had illicit relations with a young girl. Buckingham defended his honour in court and brought down Blood. Blood was indeed ruined. Damages were set at £10,000, which is the equivalent of well over £1 million these days. And at the age of 62, he was far too old to carry out any desperate plan to save his bacon. So, within weeks of being released on bail, he died a broken man. But his death wasn't the end of the story. Blood's reputation was such that many people thought that his death was one of his plots and that his funeral was a farce. Buckingham in particular thought that this was Blood's way of avoiding paying the damages. So, orders were given for Blood's body to be exhumed and identified. The corpse was so badly decomposed it was virtually unrecognisable, except for Blood's trademark, his oversized thumbs. Blood was once again laid to rest, and though he was finally considered dead, his reputation lingered on as one of England's greatest rogues.